Welcome back to DSR, and I am continuing the Rogue series. So this one is going to be on the Thief subclass, and I will be doing the review of it, an analysis, and then rating each of its features. As a reminder, I rate and rank everything relative to these 10 roles that you can perform in a party. None of these are required. There is no ideal party composition. The only reason this is important, or to even think about roles, is to just think about what are you trying to accomplish with your character, what is the fantasy you want to live, and then I rate things according to that, so to help you identify, is that a feature you want to add, right? Are you trying to be a controller and do you need more controller features? Then maybe look at some of the things that have controller features. If you already have enough controller features, maybe you want to look at something that gives support or helps you live longer. And that's how this all works, okay? Most of it's about defining high level what that role means. I have a whole series of videos on these. I haven't quite completed it. I've got 3 left. No, I've got 2 left. I've done all of them but 2, the face and the scout. And that last column is by no means the required role that you have to play if you're one of those subclasses. And if you're if you want to be in one of these roles, you do not have to play that class. The only reason that last column is there is to just give you an idea of the default stereotype of what those roles those classes play. The one thing I will say is that if you're going to play one of those classes and not the role that it's stereotypically associated with, then make sure you tell the rest of the party. In fact, I think you should talk with the rest of the party before session 1, no matter what. Just make sure everybody knows what everyone's role they're intending to play is, and make sure that everybody talks about this is how our party is going to work together, right? As long as you do that, any party composition is fine. If you don't do that, you're probably in trouble no matter what. So just make sure you talk with the rest of the group. That's all that matters. But it's especially important if you're going to play a class and not play one of its stereotypical roles, right? If you're going to play a cleric and not be a healer, make sure the rest of the group knows. Okay. Simple as that. And this table is available on my Google Drive, as is the rest of my materials. So don't worry about the fact that part of it's covered up by the camera here. And don't, feel like you have to like rewatch this video 1,000 times to see I mean, that would help my YouTube score. But no, you can access all of the data on my Google Drive without having to rewatch multiple times. Or if you just like to bring it up and look at it as you follow along, I mean, that's how I like to do things. So you can get it all there. Thanks. And I hope it helps. Finally, I'm on a journey to reach 3,000 subscribers. This is my 5th month of this channel, and I really appreciate the support along the way, and it makes a bigger difference than I think everybody thinks. And yeah, so if you like this kind of content and want to support, I would really appreciate it. A subscribe and a like, and help me on my journey to 3,000. We're going to get into the details of Thief Rogue now, and as you see on the screen on the left, I've got my ratings. There's 2 ratings tables. On the right, I've got the details of the Rogue. That's just how I like to see it. I assume there are people like me. Maybe not everyone is like me, but when somebody's talking about something, I really want to see all the details of the feature they're talking about. I want to see everything in context. I want to see all the ratings at the same time. I don't want it to flash up on the screen for a few seconds, then go away. That really bothers me. So I guess I'm approaching this the way I like to see it. I don't know. Let me know if you like it different ways. In the ratings, you see the upper table is actually for the ratings and rankings for the base class, okay? And I group those by tier of play. So tier 1 is levels 1 to 4, tier 2 is 5 to 10, etc. I have to group those, or I've chosen to group those because they have so many, every base class has so many features that it would just make that table huge. But when it comes to the subclass, which is the second table you see there, I do break it out by specific level, so you can see with a little more granularity how I'm rating each of the features that they get at each of those levels. And like I said, I like to see everything in context. So I've left every rating for every level and every tier up on the screen. But what I do is grade everything out if it's not the tier we're currently talking about, or not the level we're currently talking about. And that way you can kind of see everything, but it's less visually overwhelming, I hope. If you have better ideas, let me know for refining this. The Thief. Hunt for treasure as a classic adventurer. A mix of burglar, treasure hunter, and explorer, you are the epitome of an adventurer. In addition to improving your agility and stealth, you gain abilities useful for delving into ruins and getting maximum benefit from the magic items you find there. So I think this is a beautiful archetype. I love it. I love the leaning into being the adventurer and less the burglar specifically, although it does list burglar. It just lists as one of the archetypes you can play or one of the mix of things you can play. To me, I like to think of this as Locke, if you played Final Fantasy 6/3 in the United States. Um, love that character. He's a thief, but he considers himself a treasure hunter and an adventurer, not a stealing thief kind of guy, not a robber, which I think is an awesome archetype to play. And this one is wonderful. Now, I do think this is like was originally intended to be the default subclass for the rogue base class, because there is one, if you look at them, there is one kind of default base class or subclass, which is supposed to be really just doubling down on what the base class is. And then originally in 2014, the thief was that, and I think with this incarnation, it is not that anymore. And the reason for that doubling down on what the base class does is it's a simpler version, like the champion fighter for the fighter base class is a very simple subclass to use. It just does fighter things just a little better. It doesn't really add new things to it, new features that you have to use differently. It just makes the features you're already going to use just do better. And that's a great example of it. So, and I think that they intended to do that with every base class so that there was always an option for players who are maybe new to that class or just new in general to have a less complicated subclass to go with their base class. And yeah, and they undid that with a 2024 thief. They made it a lot more powerful, right? I don't think I ever, maybe only once or twice, did I see a thief rogue played in 2014. And they made it a lot more powerful. And now all I see is thief rogue, right? I've only seen a rogue be a subclass other than thief once, and that's only because it was a one shot where I restricted the subclasses to the heroes of Faerun, and that's the only reason I've ever seen a non-thief rogue now. Like every every rogue is a thief. So this is their new Gloomstalker Hexblade problem they created, and it's all because of this level 3 feature, Fast Hands. As a bonus action, you can do one of the following: sleight of hand, make a dexterity sleight of hand check to pick a lock or disarm a trap with thieves' tools, or to pick a pocket. And that is not the OP part of it. I don't think I've ever seen anybody use sleight of hand in the middle of combat. But if you needed to, this would be great because then you don't lose your whole action to do it. The second part, use an object. You can take the utilize action or take the magic action to use a magic item that requires that action. So it is great for the utilize action, right? You can do things like throwing down caltrops, set a hunter's traps, throw down ball bearings on the battlefield, which is creating like control effects, battlefield hazards, which is cool and useful. I don't know if it's better than, say, just like disengage or hide for the rogue or steady aim for the rogue, which are often more important. But those are okay, and sometimes at low levels would be some of the time would be the right thing to do and be a very useful thing to do. It's really the magic action part of this that is the huge deal. And interestingly, and some of you may be minds exploding right now, why did you give this a C, as you can see in that chart, when you say it's overpowered? Okay, so the reason this is powerful is because any magic item that you can use, right? You have to qualify for attunement to it. So, like, you can't use an enspelled staff that requires a spellcaster, so you can't attune to it unless you multiclass. Or most stabs require, most of the magical stabs that have spellcasting require attunement by some kind of spellcaster, and you can't attune to those unless you multiclass. But lots of wands only require attunement, no specific other requirements. There's the Cube of Force, just attunement, no other requirement. There's the Enspelled Weapon, the Enspelled Armor. Both of those require attunement, but no other requirement. So you can use all of those, and you can use your bonus action to cast the spells from all of those items. Yes, Cube of Force, which means you can cast Wall of Force as a bonus action and still attack somebody, or attack somebody and then Wall of Force around them so they can't get back at you and you should walk away, or Wall of Force around yourself, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of options there. And that is why it becomes very powerful, right? All of those magic items I listed, nearly every one of those is like a rare or higher level magic item. Now, there are some uncommon level magic items, and if you get your hands on those are still quite useful at lower levels. But it's extremely unlikely that you're going to have any of those magic items at level 3. So right at level 3, this is a C-rated feature. But for context, we can see is as the levels go up, I actually rate this higher. I have the scale up until it becomes an S tier feature. And I put this into the self buff column simply because if you go through every magic item in the game, yes, there are magic items and then there's homebrew magic items. and you can get items that will contribute to any of these rolls. So instead of just rating this feature across every roll, which would just make the whole chart big mess, I've instead put it only into the self buff column because you're buffing yourself in any role you want to play at that level. Technically, you can use the healer's kit as a bonus action, and that's a healing function, right? To stabilize somebody. So you can even be at level 3, have a healer function. Now it's going to be a pretty poor one. That's equivalent of like spare the dying, but it is something you can use. So it does scale up, and it scales up as you get access to more magic items. So there will be a point, regardless of whether you're in a campaign, like it's very rare that in a campaign you would reach, tier 3 and not have an excess of magic items. And many of them are going to be things that do cast spells, like Wand of Magic Missile. Even a Wand of Magic Missile is a decent bonus action for you, right? Sneak attack with your action, bonus action Magic Missile, that's 10.5 DPR guaranteed. Most people cannot achieve 10.5 DPR. Most builds and characters, I should say, cannot achieve 10.5 DPR with their bonus action, even into like, I don't know, tier 3. So that's pretty good, unless you're a sorcerer with Quicken Spell, but that's, a different thing. And so it starts off C and grows to S, maybe, problematically overpowered. It's problematic. It is. And that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Oh wait, does the thief even have any other features? Oh yeah, they do have other features. Second story work at level 3. You've trained to get into especially hard to reach places, granting you these benefits. Climber, you gain a climb speed equal to your speed. Jumper, you can determine your jump distance using your dexterity rather than your strength. So those are both nice to haves. If you have an experienced DM who likes to put variations on the battlefield, there will be plenty of opportunities for climbing that will matter. Jumping should come up rather, from time to time as well, or very often, again, depending on the creativity of the battlefield. And those should apply. And without a good strength score, your jump distance is terrible. So because your jump distance is equal to your strength score. So without adding anything to it, you're going to have a strength score of 8, which is probably what most rogues do, which means your jump distance is 8. And if you try to go any further than that, you have to make an athletics check. So that means if you jump 1 square, you can automatically jump the 1 square. If you got to jump 2 squares, you got to make an athletics check, or you don't complete the jump. You may fall or whatever. So that is also going to be useful for you. And frankly, I'm surprised that like monks don't have that as well, where they just get to use their dexterity for their jump distance. They have that feature with Step of the Wind when they spend a focus point that their jump distance triples. But as a base class, they should get this, where their jump distance is based on dexterity. Like, I don't know. Anyway, we're not talking about monks. So second story work is okay at level 3. It's probably your more useful feature at level 3 than fast hands. But this mobility feature actually loses value as, there are more and more variations in battlefields. There's more things you have to deal with that require teleportation. There are, flying monsters, and climbing speed isn't going to help you with that. So this one actually loses value as you go up in levels, whereas as I said, fast hands goes, its power goes through the roof. It's almost limitless power. So I guess it, in a way, balances out. It would have been nice if they had enough of a package here at level 3 that they felt like they got some A ranked worth features at level 3 that maintained their value and didn't scale into the stratosphere nor lose their value. So anyway, that's what we got at level 3. Moving on to level 9, we have the feature called Supreme Sneak. You gain a Cunning Strike option, which is stealth attack, costs 1d6. If you have the hide action's invisible condition, this attack doesn't end that condition on you if you end the turn behind 3/4 cover or total cover. This is a very interesting feature and kind of strange, I think, on a thief, right? This probably should have been on the assassin, and frankly, fast hands should have been on an artificer, at least the magic portion of it. Probably both portions of it, like the utilize and the magic option, magic action. Those should have been on an artificer, not a thief rogue. Anyway, so this is kind of cool because when you take the hide action, you gain the invisible condition, but it is a special version of it because it ends under more conditions than the regular invisible condition. Okay, and one of those is if you make an attack, right, which applies to the invisibility spell and a lot of sources of invisibility. But if you hit with that attack and land a sneak attack with it, which you should if you're invisible, then you can spend this and then it doesn't break your hidden state and you retain that invisible condition. Here's the weird part about it though, which is if you miss with that attack, you can't, of course, land your sneak attack and therefore can't pay the cost of this, and therefore you will be revealed if you miss. So if you stab them and cause a boatload of damage, you can remain hidden. If you miss with the attack, so you don't hit them at all and don't deal any damage, then you are no longer hidden. And I think that part is weird. I don't know. I love that they're leaning into the cunning strikes ideas. I don't know if this is the right execution for what they were going for here. And if this doesn't say thief to me, this says assassin to me. So this one's a strange one, and I don't think it's very powerful, right? But it is okay. It is okay. And if you like to use the hide action and being stealthy as a rogue, which you should, like this a core fantasy of the rogues, then this will be okay for you, right? What it means is you won't have to reuse your bonus action to hide again. So if you're either ranged or even if you're a skirmisher running out, stabbing and running back, if you pull this off, you're sacrificing 3.5 DPR or 3.5 damage, not necessarily DPR, 3.5 damage, so that you don't have to re-hide after you attack. So that frees up your bonus action. I guess that's a nice thing because you can use your bonus action to use a magic item. And whenever you use a magic item to cast a spell, unless it says otherwise, that spell has no spell components, meaning no verbal, somatic, or material components. And because of that, casting a spell from a magic item also doesn't break your hidden state and you remain with the invisible condition. Because the hidden state says it's only broken when you cast a spell with a verbal component. And all magic items don't have a verbal component unless it says otherwise. So you could go out, stab or shoot them with your action, and then use a magic item to cast, you've got a wand of fireballs, wand of fire, I think it's called, and then you shoot a fireball as your bonus action. You're still hidden. And then go find a place to hide again, or stand behind a wall or stand behind somebody else or whatever you want, right? I guess that works pretty well mechanically with this. Again, depending on the magic item you have. So there's an interesting mechanical thing. I guess it works mechanically. Like there's a mechanical theme with how this all works together. It just doesn't scream thief to me at all. I think that's all I'm struggling with is that it doesn't match my fantasy of being a thief. But it works together pretty well. Because of that, I'm going to give it a B. Moving on to level 13, we have Use Magic Device. You've learned how to maximize use of magic items, granting you the following benefits. Attunement. You can attune up to 4 magic items at once, which is quite strong, and stealing right off of the Artificer base class. Maybe this should have been an Artificer subclass. Charges. Whenever you use a magic item property that expends charges, roll 1d6 on a roll of 6. You use the property without expending the charge. That is, this is an interesting one. If it's a magic item that recharges per day, this is less useful. Like it's still useful. It's always good. It's just not super strong, right? But it also depends on the nature of the item. If you're using an item that has like Wall of Force, it's 5 charges to use. Sorry, Cube of Force. If you're using the Cube of Force magic item and you use the Wall of Force spell from it, that's 5 charges. But if you roll a 6, then that's 0 charges. So it didn't save you 1 charge; it saved you 5 charges by doing that. So this is good. But the higher the higher the rarity of the magic item, the more powerful the spells it's casting. And if it doesn't recharge its charges every day, like a lot of them do, but Staff of Power does, the Staff of the Magi does, recharges charges every day, right? Wand of Fire recharges every day, Cube of Force recharges every day, but Ring of 3 Wishes does not recharge every day. It's got those charges and that's it. The Luck Blade, I think is what it's called. That has wishes in it as well, and they don't recharge, and that makes this extremely powerful for those because you get another wish out of it. So, pretty good. And if that wasn't enough, you have now the scrolls feature. You can use any spell scroll using intelligence as your spellcasting ability for the spell. If the spell is a cantrip or a level 1 spell, you can cast it reliably. If the scroll contains a higher level spell, you must first succeed on an intelligence arcana check, DC 10 plus the spell's level. On a successful check, you can cast the spell from the scroll. On a failed check, the scroll disintegrates. Okay, This one has interesting synergy with your reliable talent. So as a thief rogue, you definitely want to get proficiency and probably expertise with Arcana, and then get a 10 or a 12 in your intelligence. And at level 13, what are we looking at? Your proficiency bonus is a +4, goes, no, at 13, it's a +5. With expertise, that's +10. With reliable, you don't even need a higher intelligence score, right? Because if you have expertise in it, that's a +10 at this level. And with reliable talent, your minimum roll is a 10, which means your minimum result is a 20, even if you have a 10 intelligence. And there are no level 11 spells. So with that alone, you can cast any spell completely reliably from a scroll, no concerns whatsoever. So yes, you would definitely want to get expertise in Arcana with your Thief Rogue. And then you can just cast any spell in the game using a scroll, right? You're not like the other, like every other spellcasting spellcaster. They are limited in that the spell on the scroll must be on their spell list. They don't have to have it prepared, but it's got to be on their spell list, or they can't even use it. You ignore all of that, right? Cleric scroll, Warlock scroll, Bard scroll, Paladin scroll. You can get Fine Steed. You can use Artificer's, Homunculus Servant spell. As long as they put it on a scroll, you can use it. And like I said, with Arcana expertise, you can just never fail. So you can just you're an anything caster now. You can cast every spell in the game. This is so broken OP. Depending on the scrolls you get, right? And depending on your DM. If your DM plays with downtime and allows people to craft scrolls, then anybody in the party can craft a scroll, give it to you, and you can now use it and cast anything. So that is a great way to just like any spell that you would want to cast between combats, like recovery spells, healing spells, curing spells, revivify spells, have all the spellcasters in the party put those on scrolls, and then they don't even have to worry, like if they're the only cleric in the party, that nobody else can use the revivify scroll, because you can. Even if they go down, you can just use it, bring them back. And if you go down, they can use it to bring you back. So this one really scales depending on accessibility to scrolls, right? But usually, even by level 13, you have found a number of scrolls. There should be plenty of scrolls, even if your DM doesn't allow scroll crafting, doesn't allow you use downtime. You should be finding plenty of scrolls. There should be options to at least buy some scrolls. You would have a variety of scrolls, and you're the ideal one to use it, because you can also use that scroll as a bonus action to cast the spell, and still use your action to attack. Okay, so depending how your DM runs all that, this is either an A or an S. I'm going to say A at this point because most tables don't play with downtime. I do. Most don't. So I'm going to just call it an A because you're just going to be stuck with whatever you find and what you can potentially buy. Moving on to level 17, we have Thief's Reflexes. You are adept at laying ambushes and quickly escaping danger. You can take 2 turns during the first round of any combat. You take your first turn at your normal initiative and your second turn at your initiative -10. And as of right now, this blows away every other rogue subclass capstone in the game. Whether it's even from the expanded 2014 content or the 2024 content, this still blows all of those away, right? Like the assassin has Death Strike, which has the potential of doubling the damage from the attack, but they get a con save. This is better than that because you can just not only attack twice on your turn, right? And that's 2 chances for a sneak attack, and that's doubling your damage. You can also get 2 reactions now, right? So you can get a reaction after your first turn to make an attack, and then you can get a reaction after your second turn on the first round of combat to make an attack. So you're making 4 sneak attacks in round 1, maybe 5, if you can achieve a reaction sneak attack before you take your first turn. Whereas the assassin can get maybe 3 sneak attacks on their first round, and that's if you get the reaction before your first turn, and then you take a sneak attack on your first turn, and then get a reaction after your first turn before your second turn. So this does way more damage than the assassin rogue's sneak attack or death strike. Plus, with each of these turns, you can be using your bonus action to drop a fireball or a wall of force, or okay, no matter which way you slice it and dice it, the Thief Rogue is now an S tier rogue. Thief's Reflex is an S. Fast Hands has scaled up to an S. By now, there are so many magic items. Like you guys the party's probably got excess uncommon and rare magic items, probably a number of wands, all kinds of stuff. And most people can't use it because they can't attune to enough. You've got an extra attunement slot. you're using those as your bonus action, and most of them like don't even use it because it conflicts with their action economy anyway, and they have better spells for their action economy. Well, you're making a sneak attack with your action and bonus action using one of those like Wand of Paralysis, Wand of Fireballs, Wand of Frost. You are an S tier at this point. I don't know what else to say about that. They it is problematically strong. This is not good for game design. This is why the accumulation of all this is why every rogue is now a thief now. This is the old Gloomstalker problem. This is the old Hexblade problem. It is too good. And now I'm going to aggregate everything with the base class, meaning aggregate the subclass with the base class. You can see the scores in the top table for the base class rankings. Then you see in the middle table my scores for the subclass, and averaging the thief rogue out across all the levels, putting it all together, it is an S tier. It is the best subclass for rogues, bar none. Well, after level, whenever you start getting enough magic items that you can use them with your fast hands. Before that, you're kind of a subpar rogue, actually. Probably every other subclass is better than you until you start getting those magic items, and then you're better than everyone else. Yeah, this is S tier, and certainly by level 20, S tier. Normally, in that third table, this is where I accumulate like the base class plus a subclass together and give those rankings for those. But because the fact that I put fast hands and rated that in the self buff column, and the Thief's Reflexes I rated in the self buff column, and Use Magic Device I rated in the self buff column, I don't rate base classes, rank base classes in on those last 4 columns, because those are not roles. Those are merely categories of functionality that you can add. So those are there so that when you have a subclass feature or a feat feature that isn't really directly related to one of the roles but does something else for you, that's there so I can at least show the ranking, and that gives you an idea of what it's giving you. But when I put it together with the base class, I don't use those. And so the base class, or so the rogue plus thief, base class plus subclass, looks like nothing changed, but it's still S tier. Okay, yeah, you're S tier at this point. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. This is too good, super strong, S tier. Thanks for watching. You can get all these materials on the Google Drive, which is linked in every description. If you don't have enough D&D in your life, I've also got a link to my Start Playing Games, where you can play games with me, or I've got a link to my Discord username. You can DM me on Discord and join my server. There are other people there playing or just talking D&D. So whether you just like talking D&D, or you want to play with people, or you're a DM and are looking for more people to play with, you can also advertise your games on my server. You're welcome to do that. There's the D&D community. So yeah, if you don't have enough D&D in your life, you can join fellow nerds playing D&D, talking about D&D, theory crafting D&D, all of that. Remember to be cool when you play D&D, because it's a game. And the only point of it is to have fun with your friends. And these people are your friends, right? So be cool. Don't play antagonistically with the DM. You're not trying to beat the DM. That person is sacrificing time and energy to be the game world for you so that you can play D&D, all right? You're not trying to beat the DM. And DMs, you're not trying to beat the players either, right? Everybody be cool. These people either already are your friends, or they could become your friends, right? Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.